There we go. Now if I just share my screen in a second. Cool. So hopefully you can see something that says donor recruitment role workshop. Fab. So as I said, thank you guys for joining this evening, giving up your evening to be here, which really, really appreciated. At any point, if you have any questions or want to interject because you need to ask a question, or you want to have more information about something, or you're nervous about something we haven't covered, please just shout. More than happy to cover that. The other thing just to mention is that if you're coming to the in-person conference and are intending to go to a donor recruitment role workshop, the content is quite similar. So feel free to stay if you'd like, because there will be some kind of discussion elements, so you'll get different things out of it, but don't feel like you have to sit through this one and that one. Just giving you an out now if you do need it. But we'd love for you to stay if you would like to. So just to kind of be aware of that. Another thing that I really wanted to flag to you is that in these sessions, we'll be going over much more of what your role as a donor recruitment coordinator would be, as opposed to the very kind of specifics of how to run an event on the day. So those sessions where it's going over like the proper step-by-step process of how to run events. One of them was today, 1 to 2 p.m, and then the other one is on Thursday at 7 to 8 p.m. They are recorded, so you can watch them anytime you like. You can watch them back in your own time. But if you would like to join the one on Thursday, that's a great opportunity to ask questions and just kind of have a bit more interaction. So feel free to join them. I know some of you have already been trained, so got a head start. But if you want the recording and can't find it, then just let me know and I can send that through to you. The other thing on that kind of note is that we are running virtual volunteer management training. That's tomorrow evening at the same time. That is something that would also be quite useful for a lot of you, I think, because as well as managing the donor recruitment event, you're managing quite a few volunteers. So if that's something you're interested in going along to, please do go along to it. It'd probably be really, really interesting and probably quite helpful for your roles. So just to go through a few brilliant things that you guys have done. Who doesn't like hearing wonderful things about Maro? On average, about 50% of the people who join at an event are signed up by Maro. That was true the last full year that we ran events, and has been true for the last several years. So you guys have an enormous impact on so many people, so many patients' lives, so many people who work at Anthony Nolan just talk about Maro with such fondness. I think if you guys heard how a lot of Anthony Nolan staff spoke about you, I think you'd be, feel very, very good about yourselves. Wouldn't feel modest at all. I think you should be really proud of what you've achieved over the last year. Because obviously this figure is a bit different over the last year, but Maro groups are actually the only people to run in-person events. So you actually had 100%, even though it was only one event. But you guys do a fantastic job, and you're completely invaluable when it comes to saving the lives of people with blood cancer. You give families hope, you inspire everyone who works at Anthony Nolan. So just want to take a moment to celebrate you guys, because you are amazing and you're doing an incredible job. On that note as well, approximately 27% of all donors are recruited by Maro. So that's just over a quarter of every single person who goes on to donate. It's because of you guys. So you're spreading the word to the right people, you're recruiting quality donors, and that's just amazing. You're really making such a massive impact. Just for some more stats, back when life was a little bit more normal, you guys recruited 12,896 people to the register in the 1920 academic year. And this isn't to scare you into saying you have to recruit this many this year. I'm just showing you this so you can see what can be achieved and what Mara groups in the past have done, and hopefully excite you for all those opportunities that are hopefully coming your way in the next few months. Obviously, we don't know exactly what COVID will look like, but for those of you who are comfortable running events and are able to run events, hopefully you feel really excited to see those green crates again and to get that buzz of recruiting someone at an event. I know I'm very excited. So over the last academic year, 77 people who donated their stem cells were recruited by Marrow, which is incredible. That's not just 77 people, that's 77 families, 77 sets of colleagues, of friends, of loved ones. You've had an enormous impact on so many people's lives. So again, I think you should feel very proud. I'm kind of running out of superlatives, but you're brilliant, you're fabulous, you're wonderful. So yeah, just to show you the impact that you do genuinely have on real people's lives and how important the work that you're doing really is. And just to give another very big number to you guys, since Marrow began in Nottingham in 1998, 165,115 potential lifesavers have joined the register because of you. Hi, Piggy. So yeah, you have managed to achieve loads. It's just amazing to see that number and see that all you guys have contributed to that, and hopefully get you really excited for the year of what you can add to that, because I know that a lot of you are just raring to go and very excited, probably a little bit nervous, but hopefully really excited to see what this year will bring. And I can't wait to see everything that you guys achieve. I think it's going to be incredible. So well done already. Last year, I know it was weird and looked a bit odd, but I just wanted to include this just to show you that you did do some incredible stuff. I mean, I loved Belfast Mara's little ghosts in the top left corner. That was one of my highlights of what you can do with online donor recruitment. But you guys still had an absolutely incredible year. I think I was really concerned about what Mara groups would do and how we would still carry on kind of engaging you and how you would be able to inspire volunteers. But you did an incredible job. You carried on doing it. You carried on being that beacon of hope for families and patients and people who had been forgotten by the pandemic. You were there as a hope for them. So you did an incredible job last year, as usual. But yeah, pretty amazing. So I wanted to just get a feeler for how you are feeling about donor recruitment this year. The good, the bad, anything you're excited about, anything that you're nervous about. I'd really love to know so that I can shape this workshop to what you guys need. And also just so that you guys can see what other people are excited about or a little bit nervous of. So Neil is going to pop a Miro board link in the chat. Please let me know if you have no idea what Miro is, or you don't know how to use it, or you can't access the board. Please shout. But I will stop sharing. Actually, what I will not do is stop sharing my screen. I will turn it on to the Miro board. Hopefully you can see that, so we can see what we're doing. But I'll give you about 10 minutes to just add your thoughts to it. As I said, please do shout if you don't know how to write on a post-it note or anything. But yeah, it would be fantastic if you just spend a few minutes doing that. I don't know how to add music, so I will just sit here and watch you do that in silence. If anyone wants to speak, like if anyone doesn't quite know how to word something and would rather say it out loud, then obviously feel free to do that. I'm not very good at silences, so I might just pop up and start speaking. Anyone not been able to access the board? See, I told you I couldn't stay silent. I'm going to take that as everything's all good. I feel like cursors have stopped moving quite as much. Is everyone done, or would anyone like a couple more minutes? I think we're done. Does anyone want to talk through anything they've written down, or has anyone seen something written down that they are curious about or feel as well?
I would just say, kind of for us, our biggest challenge is that the uni is still operating a lot of kind of social distancing guidelines, and trying to get the SU to kind of cooperate, because it's in that transition phase of kind of moving back to normality. So there's a lot of, so we usually will book space in the university, and currently the form to book that space to hold events isn't open. So it's kind of, as much as then the university delays, then delays us in our planning, because obviously we can't order supplies until we know that we've got an event to run. So I think, yeah, it's just kind of, that's probably our biggest concern, is kind of adapting and trying out different areas on campus and kind of working out which ones are successful and which ones aren't. I feel like this year will be a lot of kind of trial and error with that.
Yeah, it's really interesting though. Sorry.
No,
I feel like it might just be a bit of feedback. But no, I was just going to say, it's really interesting because I think a lot of universities have just completely sort of not quite forgotten COVID exists, but have just like gone back to normal, and you just would never know COVID ever existed on the campus. So that's really interesting, really good in a way that they're being cautious, but obviously for you and events, it's not necessarily ideal. But yeah, I think you're probably very right, and it'll be a lot of trial and error and trying out different locations and stuff. Your sports week seemed to go down really well though, so hopefully like it will be a lot of trial and success as well.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you or anyone else have any other thoughts that I'd like to chat about? Fair enough. I thought some of your thoughts were really, really interesting. And I like the Excited has had the role last year but didn't get to run many events. Hopefully this will be a brilliant opportunity to kind of completely flip that and run as many events as you feel happy to do. And hopefully coming in a little bit more confident than maybe you would be if you'd never held this position before, because you've got a bit of a foundation, hopefully. If not, we can build that today. But yeah, I think what you said is really brilliant and sounds a lot more excited than anything else, which is really lovely. So I'm glad you're excited about the year ahead, but also very much fair enough that you're nervous. It is still a lot of the unknown, and like Caitlin said, there's still going to be quite a lot of trial and error involved. But hopefully, if we can use that donor recruitment Facebook group, and a lot of Mara groups can chat to each other about what's worked, then together we'll be able to figure out how things can succeed a lot faster, because there's 50 groups, so altogether I think kind of put together a bit of a plan of action, which should be really, really good. So if I just go back to sharing this, once it loads, don't need that anymore. So I'm just going to chat you through planning a donor recruitment event now. For some of you that have been around for a while, you might know this, but just zone out if you do. But some things might have changed. So booking and supplies. You'll need to use the events management system for this. If you have never used it before, or you don't know your password or your details around it, just get in contact with your Mara team rep. We've got all the passwords and everything, so we can help you through that. And we're just kind of letting everyone know that it's really important to book at least 2 weeks in advance. We have outsourced our fulfillment, so outsourced the people that pack those green crates recently. And this is just because in our busy periods, we need a lot more hands, all hands on deck really. But also it means that there's a few more steps to go through before we can actually get you that green crate. So to avoid any disappointment, to avoid not being able to actually run any of those events, it's really important that if possible, you can get those booked at least 2 weeks in advance. That being said, if you do get an incredible opportunity with, say, a week to go, don't just write it off, let your Mara team rep know and we'll see if it's possible, but we just can't guarantee anything. Another step that is sort of in kind of consideration at the moment is the risk assessment. So some of you will have already filled this in and know what it looks like, but we have another risk assessment that's online. It's an MS form. It's quite quick to fill in, but if you have any questions on it, just again let your Mara team rep know. This is something that you need to fill in before we can approve your event. It's basically just to make sure that it's a really low risk location and that everything should go according to plan. But if you do need any help filling that in, again, just let your Mara team rep know and we can definitely help you with that. And in terms of delivery and collection, so we're using DPD, which DPD are really fantastic at kind of giving you updates if you have a package on the way. So it's really crucial that you put a contact phone number in the booking form, just so that they can get those details sent over to you. You know when to expect them. Hopefully they give you a fairly small time slot, which would be really good. Just so that you don't miss any collections or deliveries, because it does cost if the deliveries fail, which obviously isn't the end of the world. Obviously mistakes happen, but just to make life easier for you and for the delivery driver, it would be really handy to have your mobile number in there and have as many details. If say it's an SU, the box is going to an SU and it's kind of hard to find, it would be really useful to just have a set of instructions so that the driver knows where to go. And then the last thing is just to, as accurately as possible, estimate how many supplies you need, just so that we can limit waste. I know that for some of you it might be more difficult, like obviously with you, Caitlin, and going to new locations, you might have no idea what the footfall will be like. So just kind of being sensible with how many people you think you might sign up. So if it's a really low footfall event that you would be optimistically thinking you might get 54, please don't book 300 supplies, but you know your campus better than we do, so we're going to trust your judgment on it. But yeah, just kind of keep in mind roughly how many you think you will actually need. Then this is what the EMS looks like. So this URL at the bottom, literally just type events.antinon.org into Google and it will pop up with your online portal and then you can just log in. So this is where you would order all your supplies. We do have a slight technical problem, which is with the event type. You need to choose other rather than like a Maro event, just because there's a slight glitch in the system. So just letting you know that so it doesn't trip you up when you try and submit an order. But everything else should be working perfectly fine, and it's where you can just pop in exactly how many supplies you need for each like section. So if you need 50 swabs, 50 QR codes, one black folder, you know, those kind of things. So it's just to speed up that process in case you're trying to find your Maro group and event type. So delivering your supplies, we have already talked a little bit about this, but one thing to be aware of is that our couriers don't deliver on weekends. So if you do have, say, an event on a Sunday, then you'll need that delivered on a Friday, or even better, a Thursday, because what we're asking is that you get your supplies delivered at least 2 days in advance. The reason for that is that just in case your delivery gets missed, it's not in time for it, and then you kind of have a panic because it's the day of the event and you don't know whether the supplies will turn up in time. That would just mean everyone involved is very, very stressed. So it's just to kind of avoid that, really. And as I said, just please provide as accurate address and instructions as you possibly can, just kind of keep it detailed. And then what would be really, really handy is if it's getting delivered to an SU or to a place where there are staff members rather than someone's house, then just checking that staff know to expect the delivery. We have on occasion had deliveries turned away because the staff didn't realise what it was for. And then if you are getting it delivered to somewhere other than a committee member's house, just check the day before the event that the samples have arrived, just in case they haven't turned up and no one mentioned it, just so you don't get any nasty surprises on the day. So I'm hoping that the audio on this will play. This is National Maro from a couple of years ago, just talking you through the Maro spiel. So this is one of the reasons actually why I mentioned that the volunteer management training might be something that you could potentially go along to, might be interested in, just because the Maro spiel is something that obviously people need a decent amount of training in. Maybe people are a little bit nervous about approaching people, and so if you kind of feel confident in training volunteers, if they're kind of turning up to the event partway through the day and you're busy running the event, then hopefully this will put you in a much better stead to be able to train them. But this is actually a really good resource. It's on SharePoint, so if you do want to include this in any volunteer training, or if you do want to kind of have it to hand for your new volunteers, it might be really good. But I think I've configured my audio so it'll work, but please let me know if you can't hear this. That would be very sad. We good? Can you hear it?
Sorry, I haven't got time today. I'm really sorry.
It'll only take about 10 minutes. It's really quick. So about 1 in 100 chance of actually going on to donate. Please find us. Please. Please sign up to the bone marrow register. I'll be your best friend. Hi, would you like to save a life at uni? No, I'm okay, sorry. Wait, so you don't want to save lives? Hi, have you heard about Marrow? No, I haven't. What is it you're doing? All you have to do is fill in a form and do a cheek swab, and you could save a life. That sounds amazing! Wow! Hi, excuse me, have you heard about Marrow? No, what do you do today? So basically, we're signing people up to the stem cell register, and what it is, there was this little boy who had a disease called Wiskott-Aldrich syndrome, and in 1974, his mum Shirley started the bone marrow register because unfortunately they couldn't find a donor to him and he passed away. So she had this really great idea where she got loads of, so all you have to do to sign up on the form, what we need is 2 addresses, and it's really important that we get not your university address, but where you live with your mum and dad. So we need one of those, and then a second address, and you need to weigh over 50 kilograms, be a permanent UK resident, and I'm not sure if you smoke. So if you're found to be a match, they're going to do some blood tests, and then they'll give you some GCSF, and that'll make the bone marrow in your bones come out into your blood. I've actually got 2 more minutes, just a couple more things to say. Okay. And then once they've done that, they'll give you a chest X-ray, method of donation. It just involves going to sleep under a general anaesthetic. Now, how they'll do this is you'll be put and you'll go into the room, and it'll be really nice and calm, and then, just a couple more. Hi, excuse me, have you heard about Marrow? No, I haven't. So we're signing people up to the National Stem Cell Register today. It's to help save the lives of people who have leukemia and other blood cancers. Sometimes they need a stem cell transplant to save their life, but it usually comes from an unrelated donor. We're signing those donors up today. All you have to do is fill out a form and do a little cheek swab. That puts you on the register, and you then have about a 1 in 100 chance of being a match for somebody. And if you were that match, you'd be asked to donate your stem cells. In over 90% of cases, it's very similar to giving blood, and in 10% of cases, it's a short procedure done under a general anaesthetic. Neither donation process hurts, and you could save somebody's life, which is pretty cool. Wow. Is that something you'd be interested in doing? Yeah, totally. That sounds awesome. Great. So just come this way, and we'll tell you some more information about the sign-up process. Great. So to begin with, ask the question. Say what you're doing and why you should sign up. Say what happens if they're a match. Then end of question. Start to give them time to answer. Smile and have fun with it. And remember, welcoming can be daunting, but it can make a massive difference to your events.
So hopefully you did hear that, and we didn't just sit for 4.5 minutes without you hearing anything. But yeah, like I said, that's a really great resource, and I know I'm rusty on my marrow spiel, so I'm sure a lot of marrowers out there are also quite rusty, so it might be worth just kind of going over this before your first event with your committee, your volunteers. It might be something that a lot of people would really appreciate. I know that when I came to explaining what the stem cell register is to a friend recently, suddenly realised that I'd kind of forgotten half of the things, which was very embarrassing. But yeah, it's definitely worth going over. So another thing that we wanted to flag is that we have removed the socially distant guidelines from our donor recruitment training because they're no longer, for most places in the UK, there's no social distancing guidance that's necessary to have in. However, we obviously do know that a lot of people will be wanting to have some social distance guidelines in place, will know that your campus potentially is having social distance guidelines still, and potentially even it's just, maybe your committee or volunteers don't feel entirely comfortable running an event without any social distancing. So if you do want to go through any guidance or any tips that we had in place, you can absolutely get in contact with your marrow rep, and we can talk you through various things you can do and various steps you can take to try and keep your events as COVID safe as possible. But at the moment, we're kind of just saying it's up to your judgment, whatever you think that you, your committee, your volunteers are going to be comfortable doing. whatever the uni is comfortable with you doing, we're trusting you that you know what's best for your volunteers in your university, but we're obviously here to help if there are any guidelines you need us to put back in. So just get in contact if you ever want to chat about that. When it comes to the application form, so once you have had the training, or if you already have had the training, you'll know that we don't have a paper application form anymore. It's an online form, which actually makes it a lot easier for you guys, because the person who is filling in their details won't be able to submit the online form with any missing information, which is fantastic. And then also when someone's written something in the comments in the other information box in the medical details section, their application needs to be manually approved, which is the same as it used to be. But it's not something that you'll need to necessarily check yourselves. It will go straight to our donor support team. But we do know that regardless of things going a lot faster with the online form, you still might have quite a lot of medical queries. You might have people coming up to you saying, well, I feel like I should tick the asthma box, but I don't know if that will stop me going on the register. Will it stop me going on the register? You still have those medical guidelines in your black folders. No, not your black folders, your green boxes. So that is still there for you to look at and to use if you do need it. If someone does have a medical condition that you're not sure of, and you're not sure whether it is okay for them to go on the register, just ask them to give as much detail as possible about the condition that they have, and it will be sort of manually checked through. Someone who is like an expert in that situation, one of the medical officers, will have a look through that, and they'll be able to let that applicant know once it's submitted. But if someone is really persistent and you're just not sure of the answer, you can always call the donor support team, who can get an answer to you right away. So their number is at the bottom of the screen, so feel free to screenshot this. But yeah, they're around weekdays 9 to 5, so feel free to give them a call if you need to, because obviously that medical guidelines folder isn't an exhaustive list of every medical condition there is out there. I once had a very, very slow event, so read through the entire thing. Well, I skimmed it, and can confirm not everything is in there, which of course it isn't, because it wouldn't probably fit in a book like that. But yeah, if you're ever unsure about anything, you can always call the donor support team or get in contact with your Mara rep if you don't want to, if you don't want to call them, or if your event's on a weekend. But yeah, that is all still there for you, so don't worry about that. And then when it comes to packing up an event, obviously same as normal, please pack your boxes up neatly. The samples will be in a red bag like normal, like they always were, and then just pop the return note into the red bag with the samples, and make sure you secure the green box with cable ties, and leave somewhere that's really secure, and then pop that delivery note on top. Those of you who have run events before, the delivery note will look a little bit different. We'll get to that in the next couple of slides. But other than that, everything is pretty much the same as it always was. So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise to you, unless obviously you're fairly new at this. But if you are, then we are running donor recruitment mock events at the in-person conference. So if you're going to be there, you'll be able to kind of like feel your way through it. So it should be a little bit more intuitive when we're actually there. Obviously, if you're not able to go, then it's totally fine. And we can run more training at any point if you would like to. But like I said, have a look at that donor recruitment quality training, because that is the process from start to finish. So next, this is something I just wanted to flag because it's not something everyone will have seen. So this is the delivery note, which you can find in your black folder. It will probably be in the same pocket as your QR codes. So what you'll need to do is, once you've finished your event, just fill in the circled sections. So if in most cases you probably will be the event lead given your role. So just fill in that full name and signature. And then if there are samples included, which in most cases there will be, just pop a number in the number of swab kits collected at the event, just so we know how many we're looking out for. and then the number of returned unused swab kits. And again, here as well is if someone has, for example, filled in an application form and pressed submit online and then decided that they don't want to go ahead and they don't want to do the swab, then that's totally fine. Or if someone has finished their swab and then changes their mind, you can also kind of write that down there just so we know. In the event that someone does do their swab and change their mind, obviously that's their DNA. They are perfectly, fine to get rid of that themselves if they'd like to. But if they would rather we destroyed it, then just send it back to us. So if you pop a big red cross through the swab wallet and then on the back write discard, we can put that in our secure medical waste. So don't ever feel like you have to be responsible for destroying that. But yeah, so that's just if someone ever does kind of come up to you having changed their mind at that last moment. It's not particularly common, but just something to be aware of, just in case it does happen. And then this is what the delivery note looks like now. So again, it is found in your black folder, and all you need to do is just fill in the samples enclosed and yes, and then just how many samples that you have got enclosed, just so they know what they're looking for. And then you just tape that to the top and you're good to go. So I don't know what time we're on, but I was imagining that would take a little bit longer. If you could send me a message if you would like a break, we can crack on if you wouldn't, but would everyone like a break? I don't know if silence means yes or no.
I'm happy to carry on if other people are, but I don't mind.
Okay. Shall we crack on till 6 and then have a break?
Yeah.
Perfect. So this really exciting next few slides is about GDPR, which I know is a little bit dry, but it is really, really important, and really important that we go over it. So just bear with me for a few slides. I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. So as a Mara group, you will be handling quite a lot of data, and as donor recruitment coordinators, you're probably going to be event leads in a lot of scenarios, which means that you'll be handling volunteer data, and not right now because we don't have physical application forms, but if they do at any point come back, you'll be dealing with application forms which have sensitive data, private personal data. So we just essentially need to make sure that you know about the GDPR guidelines. So when you're collecting a volunteer's data, basically just treat others as you'd like to be treated yourselves kind of a policy. So just be really clear and honest why you're collecting the data, what you're using it for, store it securely. So most times you'll be using something that Antinon has created. So for the volunteer sign-in sheet, for example, that is an online Microsoft Forms. It's encrypted, so it's not something you need to worry about in most situations. Where you might have more thought needing to go into it is if you're maybe collecting names at a freshers fair, and how you're securely storing that data. The other things are just using it for purposes you told them you would, rather than for anything else. Using the data securely, and if someone asks you to stop contacting them, just stop contacting them. So if someone does get in contact with you and says, oh, I've changed my mind, I want to come off the register, that is absolutely something we can do for them. We can get rid of all their information. You just need to contact us and we can sort that out. If you ever have a query that you're not sure of, you can always email the data protection at antinon.org email. But if you want to get in contact with your Mara team rep instead, that's also totally fine. We're definitely more than happy to help you with any of this nitty-gritty details kind of stuff. And then the last thing is just to not give their data to anyone else. Because again, that's not what you're supposed to be using it for. In terms of when you're collecting data, you need to just be really transparent about how you intend to use it, and give people the appropriate privacy notices. So we have a privacy policy in all the black folders, which people are absolutely welcome to read if they want to. As they're using the online form to sign up, right at the end, there's also a link to the privacy policy if they do want to read that. And then we also have this kind of quote if anyone does question anything. The registered charity number is at the bottom of a lot of our details and our data. So if you need to give someone that information, it can be found throughout your black folder. But again, if you want to like screenshot this so you know it and you have it, then please feel free to. And again, we're more than happy to help if you do have any queries or anyone is not sure of anything. I have had a few people in the past not sign up to the register because they wanted to just check for themselves that we were a legit charity, and that's totally fine. That's totally within their rights. So just the best you can do is give them the privacy policy and the charity number. Oh, I feel like I've just gone backwards. There we go. So in terms of storing data, as the person who collects it, legally you're responsible for how it's stored. So we've got obviously Marrow email accounts, we've got Office 365, so you can absolutely feel free to use that for storing your data. And then there's just some steps for computer security. You've already got two-step verification on your Marrow email addresses, so that's not something you need to worry about too much. But some good ideas are things like installing a firewall and virus checking on your computer, making sure that you receive automatic updates and improvements, making sure that you've got the latest kind of security updates, and only allowing volunteers and other committee members to actually access the information they need to, not passing passwords around, just the kind of the stuff that you're probably already been told by lots of security experts and by your uni probably, but just kind of using common sense and using the tools at your disposal to make sure that you have everything more secure. And then again, if you're not sure where to store anything, 365 is your best bet. So in terms of using for the purpose that you told them you would, you are very likely to only need to use their data for Marrow communications. And obviously you've told them what you'll use it for. If you do change purposes, so say for example you had a volunteer newsletter that you used a certain mailing list for and then you started using it for something else, you'd need to let them know and update your mailing list in case they wanted to come off it. But in terms of contacting the privacy office, again, you can do that, but feel free to go through your Marrow team steward if you'd rather. And then with using the data securely, so like I said, it should be on 365. And then when you're contacting people on your mailing list, just make sure that you are really double checking the name of the recipient. I know I've done it 1,000 times where I've intended to email someone and someone else has popped up on the drop down and I've just automatically clicked their name. So saves everyone embarrassment if you just check the name of the recipient before you send the email, because it could be pretty embarrassing. And then just using BCC to send emails on a mailing list, because obviously if you've got people signed up at freshers, they haven't consented for everyone else having their email addresses. So just using BCC so that no one else can get access to their personal data. And then just being really careful when you're using a group email address, which probably isn't something you're doing too much. And if it is, it's probably to the university or the SU. But just making sure that you do kind of check, like press that little plus button so that you can see who exactly is in the email group, just in case you don't want the email to go to all of them. And then, yeah, like I said before, if someone wants you to stop contacting them, you just have to stop contacting them. Make sure that you mark your records so that that person is removed. So either you know, putting a kind of a black line through where their data was, and don't remove them completely, which I know is a bit of a counter message, just because if you remove them and then they sign up again, you risk contacting them again. So one of the things that we do, for example, is if someone wants to be removed from all communications that they receive from Mara and Auntie Nolan, you can pass them on to us and we can remove them on our database. So don't worry too much, just pass them along to donor.support@auntienolan.org and we will be able to delete them securely. And then don't give their data to anyone else. Obviously, anyone outside of your Mara committee probably doesn't need access to that data. But yeah, if you get some sort of email of someone that you're not sure is allowed access to that data, even if it's someone like in the SU or a member of the university like faculty, just let the Mara team know right away, just so we can confirm whether that's all right or whether it's not. But if you're nervous about anything at any point or aren't sure whether it's okay to share anything, just let us know and we can deal with it. So in terms of GDPR at a recruitment event, which is probably where you're going to be interacting with it most, you have got less data management to do, just because with digital data capture, it means that you've not got paper application forms to be dealing with. Everything on an online form is on that individual's phone and then sent off to Auntie Nolan's database, so it never really comes into contact with you. But if you have a paper form, or if a potential applicant is kind of waving their phone in your face saying, is this okay? Is this all right that I've written? Just keep it confidential. Don't grab their phone and start showing everyone. And then another thing to kind of bear in mind is if a friend comes up to you and wants to join the register, please don't counsel them. If you know them personally, they might be less willing to tell you personal health concerns than someone they don't know, and we obviously don't want them leaving anything out or feeling uncomfortable. So just try and get someone else to sign them up instead. And as well as kind of people being more comfortable telling medical information if you don't necessarily know them personally, it's also more likely that they'll be honest if the confidentiality is stressed to them. So just let them know that you obviously won't be telling anyone, that it's all confidential, it's all kind of securely stored, and it's not going to be used in any way other than what they've been informed is going to be used for. And then if you do kind of have a question about someone's medical history, they've asked you whether they can join the register if they have, if they've been refused as a blood donor, for example, and you're not sure of the answer, just check with them that they're okay for you to ask another member of your committee first, which I'm sure you would do. And then, so this is just the safeguarding section that I also need to run through, but shall we have a quick 10-minute break now, because that was a bit heavy. So what I shall do is stop sharing my screen. If we take 10 minutes, so we take until 6, and then we'll come back. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect. Right. I'll see you in 9 minutes.
Yeah, I'm back.
Perfect. Hello. Freya, are you back?
Yeah, hi.
Amazing. Hello. So we shall get started then. I know GDPR is a lot. We've just got a few safeguarding slides to get through, and then we can go back to fun stuff. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen again. So just a few slides on safeguarding. as Anti-Nolan, we do have a responsibility to safeguard the welfare of all children and vulnerable adults who are involved in or affected by our work. You probably won't come across many children, though some of you may end up doing a few hero project talks in schools, so you may kind of be near people under 16, even though you're not aiming your hero project talk to them. So it's potentially relevant with children, but it's more likely that this will kind of be predominantly around potentially vulnerable adults. As a volunteer, you might come into contact with some of these vulnerable adults, and so you might see or hear something which raises concerns. And so this is essentially just to kind of give you a bit of confidence in, if that does come up, what steps to take and how we can help you. So if you do have to, say, disclose an incident, then kind of take you through the steps of that to make sure that it's reported. And just to kind of let you know that it's the responsibility of every member of staff at Anti-Nolan, every trustee, every volunteer, to report those safeguarding concerns to the appropriate person. So we do have a safeguarding lead, in various safeguarding leads in different teams at Anti-Nolan, and your Marrow rep will know who that is. So if you're comfortable reaching out to them, then you can absolutely do that. If you would like to read about our safeguarding policies, the website is on the screen, so feel free to have a read through that. It's sort of summarised here, so that you'll get the gist of it. So in terms of why you need to understand safeguarding, we have safeguarding procedures because we have to abide by laws and regulations regarding safeguarding. We also have sort of professional and personal responsibility. We need to promote children's and adults' wellbeing and safety, prevent abuse from occurring, protect the organisation's reputation, and protect all of you, and all of us, from any potential kind of false allegations or anything like that. So I won't read the full definition of safeguarding to you, but it is essentially protecting someone's right to live in safety and free from abuse. So a vulnerable adult, I said I wouldn't read it and now I'm basically reading it. A vulnerable adult is someone who is aged over 18, who may be in need of kind of community assistance, or may have a disability that means that they are unable to kind of take responsibility, take care of themselves. And there are a few differences. So if you are in Scotland, for instance, adult protection starts at 16, which is different for England, Northern Ireland and Wales. So just being aware of that. So if, and I don't think anyone here is going to go to an event in Scotland soon, but maybe someone watching this back, if you are going to an event in Scotland and you're doing a hero project training, for example, just be aware that 16-year-olds are included in the vulnerable adults section of this. So to report a concern, you might be concerned because you've seen or suspect abuse, or you've heard about an allegation being made, or someone tells you. If there is immediate risk, or a crime's been committed, or you feel in danger or unsafe, then please do call the police immediately on 999. And if you're worried for your own safety, then please leave the situation. We don't want you sticking around if you're concerned for your kind of personal safety. And again, you should also contact the police if you have serious concerns, or it's outside of Anti-Nolan office hours, and so you can't maybe get in contact with your Marrow team rep, just because you need to make sure that it's dealt with as soon as possible. And if the situation does involve a child, contact the NSPCC Child Protection Helpline. But again, that's really unlikely that that will happen outside of office hours. And if that ever did happen, it's likely that it would happen in a school who also had a safeguarding lead. So there'd probably be procedures in place there as well. So if this is something that you can wait to tell your volunteer manager or your Marrow team rep, then that's fantastic if you don't need to call 999. So please contact the anti-bullying safeguarding team if you can't reach your Maritime rep. So if one of us is off on holiday or something, you'll usually be able to contact another member of the Maritime. But if you would also feel more comfortable telling someone that you don't already have a relationship with, then feel free to email safeguarding@antinolan.org. The discussion will be kind of around the nature of the abuse, any risks to those involved, the appropriate actions and next steps. And you should report your concerns on the same working day, and make sure that you've got a detailed written record made. So the first step, as long as after you've made sure everyone's safe in a situation, would just be to write down everything you can remember. If you contact the police or NSPCC, it's still important to contact your Maritime rep or the safeguarding email address, just so that we know what's going on and we can make a record of it as well, and take care of you, because it is quite a lot to be told that or to observe that happening. So just kind of keep that open dialogue, and just make sure that we're aware of all the steps you've taken so that we can have an accurate record of it as well. So if someone does disclose a safeguarding concern or issue to you, try and stay calm and be reassuring. So you can say things like that you're really glad they trusted you at that, that you believe what they're telling you, that you know that it's not their fault, and you're going to do your best to protect and support them. Just listen to what they're saying without displaying shock or disbelief, because that could come across as though you don't believe them. And then accept what's being said, but don't kind of make any comments or make any judgments on it. And then record that information as soon as possible, just because it's obviously really easy to forget the facts. So just write them down if you can, and write exactly what the person told you rather than what you're interpreting. It's really important to include a date, time, words spoken, any injuries, and then a brief outline of the concern or incident. And then next, to just reassure that person. So obviously you can't say to them, I'll stay with you or everything will be all right now, because you can't guarantee that. You also can't guarantee confidentiality. You do have a duty to refer them to the safeguarding lead. So it can't just stay between you two. So please don't promise that. But please do, if you feel able to, reassure and alleviate the guilt if the person does suggest that they're feeling guilty. It's important that they hear that they're not to blame for whatever it is that's happened. Then, in terms of reacting, don't pass any kind of judgmental information on, or don't kind of come across as judgy. Try not to ask leading questions. It might kind of invalidate the evidence. In kind of a court scenario, just kind of listen and just take in what they're saying and just allow them to speak. The other thing is also just to not criticise the person that they are speaking about. They, may have a really close personal relationship with that person, and it could be really confusing and hard to hear. And then, just as I said, it's really important that you report your concerns to your Maritime rep or the safeguarding email as soon as you can. Absolutely not your responsibility to deal with any of this yourself. If it's a committee member, if it's a volunteer, if it's a friend, that is potentially a really difficult situation for you to be in as well. So we want to know everything we can so that we can support you. And then it's really important to let the person know that if they tell you something that you feel could harm them, the someone will only be, that's a really weird way of phrasing it. This someone will only be an appropriate person with the authority and skills to help you, but you should only never promise to keep anything a secret. Interesting wording, but essentially, yeah, if they tell the safeguarding leader, if they tell the Maritime rep, that person will, be in a professional place where they can offer kind of support and guidance, but they won't do anything to potentially harm that person or give that information to anyone that doesn't need the information. They may choose not to tell you if they know that you're going to tell a safeguarding lead, which is absolutely their choice, it's their right. hopefully they will tell you what they need to say at another time and when they're ready to. Please don't pressure them. But if they choose not to tell you, then obviously that's still a cause for concern. So please do pass that information on to your Maro team rep, and we can kind of support you with what the potential next steps might be, or to check that you're kind of feeling all right. In summary, so we've gone over all this, but just to reiterate that safeguarding is the responsibility of everyone who is affiliated with Anti-Nolan, whether it's staff or volunteer, just to make sure that you have kind of had this training, that you've sort of gone over the safeguarding documents. Just make sure that you do understand how to recognise signs of abuse in vulnerable adults. So that's things like potential bruises, stuff that they may say that's a cause for concern, making sure that you report any concerns you have, and don't assume that anyone else has, so reporting them as soon as you can, but without investigating yourself. Once you have told us, we will let you know if we need anything else from you. So please don't investigate it yourself. We can do all that. And then, of course, if someone is in immediate danger or you are in immediate danger, then call 999, or if it's a vulnerable child, please call the NSPCC. And if you do have any questions, then you can talk to me, you can talk to your Maro rep, or you can email safeguarding@antinolan.org. So hopefully that is not something you ever have to encounter. It's obviously really quite rare that you would have to raise a safeguarding concern, but we want to make sure that you are comfortable with that if that does happen. So back to donor recruitment. I wanted to touch a little bit on the targeting recruitment aspect. So we know that we need more potential donors. We know that we need more young men and people from minority ethnic backgrounds to join the stem cell register. So young men are more likely to be asked to donate, and people from similar ethnic backgrounds are more likely to be matched with each other. So we have the need for getting more people from minority ethnic backgrounds on the register because they're currently underrepresented. So we know that you're fantastic at targeting recruitment, and we know that if we get more young men and people from minority ethnic backgrounds to join the register, we can then save more lives. So it's really important that we are focusing on that targeting. And obviously some universities you won't necessarily be able to target as much as you would like, but just to keep those in mind when you are at events and when you're talking to volunteers about who they might want to go and approach. One really great way to do this targeting is to focus it around campaigns. So things like tackling inequalities is obviously really great because it's dedicated to making sure that you're recruiting as many people from minority ethnic backgrounds as possible. You have campaigns such as March of the Men that's really focused on men. Things like Hero Week, where you could potentially do a competition with sports teams, potentially the male sports teams, to see which sports team has the most heroes in, for example. There's lots you can do with campaigns to target that recruitment. And obviously campaigns have a lot more resources attached to them. So if you're not sure where to start this year, then make sure you check out all the resources on 365, because there's a lot of support you can get for donor recruitment with campaigns. So given the amount of people we've got today, I won't split you into 3 breakout rooms. So I just wanted to have a quick chat about Hero Week, March of the Men, how you're feeling about donor recruitment campaigns. So if anyone has any ideas or any kind of thoughts on campaigns at the moment. So does anyone want to give any ideas that maybe they've thought about already for the year ahead? Totally fine if you haven't thought of that yet, but what I would suggest is, obviously we're coming into a time where it's amazing for planning. You can plan your entire year in terms of campaigns. And certainly for newer groups, so for Freya with Bristol, it's kind of just starting back up again. So it might be a really good idea to say, kind of do one event per campaign, which is relatively manageable because it's only sort of one per month on average. So it might be a case of you making sure that you have something in place for Hero Week. Maybe you've booked a room really early and you have reached out to a few societies to potentially collab with. But like I said, there's a ton of resources for campaigns, so make sure you're using them as much as you can, really, because they're there for you. They're there to make things a little bit easier for you. Another thing that's really nicely tied into campaigns is we've got a whole bunch of email templates or direct message templates that you can use to reach out to societies about running collabs. So potentially you could reach out to lots of societies during tackling inequalities and talk to them specifically about that stat where you've got 72% of people from Caucasian backgrounds have a chance of finding the perfect match, which drops to 37% if they're from a minority ethnicity. I think that is a very hard-hitting fact. And so if you kind of focus on that, then maybe you will get a few societies who are willing to collaborate with you on those campaigns and run events with you. The other thing is, of course, I don't want to be a downer, but with COVID going on, it may be the case that you are also relying on online recruitment for some of those campaigns throughout the year. Maybe COVID will be totally fine and very well behaved and we'll all be okay. But just in case, it might be a good idea to have a couple of online recruitment thoughts and options, just in case your uni changes some guidance and doesn't let you run events for a certain period of time, or if your volunteers don't feel very comfortable, which is obviously totally fine, and you know, they're right to not want to come to events. It might be a good idea to think of a backup online recruitment activity, whether that is, I loved Belfast Marrow's posts that they did, so whether that's something like what they did, or trying to run collaborations online. I mean, when I was in Marrow, I just did all the collaborations, so that's why I keep mentioning it. But they are really, really fantastic because you've got a whole nother committee who you can team up with to plan those events. It just makes things a lot easier. So yeah, having an online recruitment activity as a backup is probably a very good shout, just in case. Skip past that. So in terms of online donor recruitment, all about using your networks. So have you got any volunteers who are members of other societies? Have you got any volunteers who are members of community groups where you can just email out your online sign up link and it's really easy for it to reach tons of people? Reach out to societies. Like I said, collaborations are fantastic. You could also make use of patient appeals. So we've got a few live patient appeals at the moment, and they're a really great way of just building that human connection up. There's a real person who genuinely does need that perfect match for them. And it kind of hammers home the message and how important what you guys do is. So use those patient appeals and reach out to people as much as you can. I'd recommend this for everything. Chat to other groups. Marrow groups are the most incredible network and community, and if you guys chat to each other about what's worked well, what other ideas they have that you could potentially also do, you just have so many opportunities to kind of jump on each other's successes and do what's worked, do what you know has worked, and kind of make a massive success out of that. I can't remember which group it was that first posted in their university confession page, but when they shared that on the donor recruitment Facebook group, a whole load of other groups did it and so many people signed up. So it's really, really worth sharing your successes, even sharing what didn't work so well, so other groups know maybe to put that at the bottom of their priority list. And ask for help if you need any ideas. National Marrow are here to help, the Marrow team are here to help. And again, I'm sure there's loads of great ideas on other groups' social media. And just share things as far and wide as you can. One of the fantastic things about online donor recruitment is that you can share that online link with everyone, anywhere. So if you can share that through all the Freshers Facebook groups, if you can get other societies sharing that on their Instagram stories, it's a brilliant way of spreading the message and potentially getting a whole bunch of signups as well. Also, SharePoint. Like I said, we've got a ton of resources for campaigns. We also have tons of resources for everything else. So if you need any email templates, maybe you want to reach out to local press to get them to come along to one of your events, that could be a really good way of drumming up more community support. You can use those templates to do that. There's tons of infographics all over SharePoint, so if you need something to really boost your social media presence, or if you want to print out a whole bunch of posters to make your Freshers stall or your event stall look really, really welcoming and really exciting, then you can absolutely do that too. But yeah, just have a look around SharePoint, see what you can find. And as always as well, if there are any resources that aren't on SharePoint that you really think would be really valuable and really worthwhile, please let us know. We'd love to make sure that we're giving you all the resources you could possibly need, and all the help you could need. So if there's anything missing in your view, please do let us know. I think that is it from me. What I'll do is I'll stop sharing, and I will stop recording.